We awoke a sinister force at school. 7 haunted tales revealed to curse your sleep forever. The air clung to them like a thick fog as Jake, Mia, Tim, and Zoe crept toward the eerie glow of the dimly lit auditorium at Maplewood High. Fear electrified the atmosphere, each heartbeat resonating with the pounding of their collective anxiety. They were about to unveil secrets better left buried. Legends whispered from the shadows, unconcealed tales of lost souls and restless spirits that roamed the hallways, punishing the careless and unwise. This wasn't just another Friday night. Tonight, they were daring to summon the unknown. Mia's voice trembled as she recited a tale of a girl who vanished without a trace, her laughter still echoing through the basement beneath their feet. Shadows danced at the edges of their vision, just out of focus, blurring the barrier between reality and myth. They glanced nervously at one another, muffled laughs barely concealing the growing dread. The chilling breeze that dared to sweep through the room robbed them of warmth, snuffing out their flickering candles as if to send a warning. "Tim, you all right?" Jake whispered, eyeing his friend who now looked pale, beads of sweat glistening on his forehead. Tim nodded, but his eyes betrayed him widened in fear, darting around as if searching for the source of the dread that clawed at their chests, and then it escalated. A low creak, loud and sinister, echoed from the stage. They all froze, the laughter dying in their throats. It was like the school itself was alive, pulling them into its dark embrace. "It's just the wind," Zoe scoffed, trying to mask the fear clutching her voice. "What's a little noise?" But they all felt it, the sudden silence that fell, pressing against them, smothering their playful bravado. Their stories twisted into nightmares, morphing into something real, something more sinister than mere legend. Seconds turned into minutes, and the tension thickened, suffocating their bonds. With each tale, paranoia festered like an open wound. Who really believed in those stories? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Creaks grew louder, shadows morphed from corner to corner, and strange messages began appearing on their phones. Each text unnervingly personal, exposing unspoken grievances, reflecting their fears. Jake's heart pounded. Were they being watched? "This isn't funny anymore," he whispered, his voice trembling. The laughter they once shared felt like a distant memory, an echo fading away into a dark abyss. "What if we called for help?" Mia suggested, but the uncertainty in her voice revealed their shared fear of the truth lurking in the school's history. What did those walls have to say about them, about their secrets? As the clock ticked toward midnight, despair closed in like a black fog. They realized that the haunting tales had stirred an unseen force, one capable of unraveling not just their friendships but their very lives. The final tale hung in the air, a challenge, a question shimmering between them. Would they face the darkness together or let it drive them apart? They stood frozen, terrified of what might reveal itself in the silence of the auditorium, each heartbeat echoing the question. Were they ready to confront the shadows they had awakened? The room pulsed with a tense stillness, broken only by the low murmurs of the shadows surrounding them. Jake felt a prickling sensation crawl over his skin. This isn't just a joke anymore," he said, his voice shaking. "We should really leave." "But what if it gets worse if we do?" Mia shot back, her eyes wide with fear. "What if staying is our only chance to?" A sudden crash from the stage snapped their attention, a deafening sound like wood splintering. Their group jumped as one, a collective gasp escaping their lips. They turned toward the noise, hearts racing, each expecting to see what might emerge from the dark. "Probably nothing," Tim finally managed, though his stammer made it hard to convince anyone of that. Still, he took a step forward, fueled by a mix of desperation and something deeper, a primal urge beyond courage. A flicker of movement caught Tim's eye, just at the edge of the stage. He squinted, peering into the blackness that seemed thicker there, and then he saw it. A figure, slumped and seemingly lifeless. "Guys, I think there's someone up there." "No way," Zoe murmured, trembling. "Don't even say that." Jake swallowed hard, denying the voice that insisted they simply leave. But when Mia moved closer to the stage, he felt the grip of her fear tighten on his wrist. "Wait. What if it needs help? What if help? Look at where we are." Jake interrupted, panic rising in his chest. "Or do you think it's a ghost we could save?" The words hung in the air, charged and electric. Their phones buzzed again, and they collectively jumped. With trembling hands, Zoe picked up her phone to see another chilling message flash across the screen: "I see you." They recoiled from the device, horrified. The oppressive atmosphere thickened, and whispering voices curled around them, chilling flesh and solidifying fear deeper than they had witnessed before. The quartet held tight to each other, but the assurance they had drawn from one another was slipping, splintering. "I can't take this anymore," Tim exclaimed, backing away from the stage, shaking his head furiously as if to ward off the terror creeping closer. "We have to get out, now." But the shadows twisted and coalesced, swirling into grotesque shapes, drowning the flickering candlelight in waves of darkness. With a crack of thunder, the overhead lights flickered to life, and in that instant, they all saw her, a girl in a tattered dress standing by the stage, her face obscured, hair hanging like a dark curtain. "Help me!" Her voice was soft but echoed with an otherworldly resonance that chilled them to their cores. Without thinking, Zoe gasped, nearly reaching out toward the figure. "Are you real? Real?" The girl echoed, her laughter chilling, like glass shattering in an empty room. "What is real anymore?" Jake's breath caught as they all took a hesitant step back. Suddenly, the auditorium doors slammed shut, sealing them inside like prey caught in a trap. Panic surged among them, hearts racing faster than they ever thought possible. They were not alone. Something was wrong, very wrong. "Stay together," Mia shouted, though her voice wobbled. "Whatever happens, we stick together." But their resolve was already splintering, overwhelmed by fear coursing through the air. With a final, shrill laugh, the girl extended her arm toward them, fingers curling like vines. The shadows surged forward, a mass of dark intent, spiraling around their feet. Fear anchored them, yet adrenaline drove them to resist the pull, and then the ground beneath them began to tremble, a rumbling that resonated through their bones. "What do we do?" Tim screamed, and it was in that moment, with everything crashing around them, they realized the stories weren't just tales anymore. It was their fate entwined in the grip of a restless evil. "Run!" Jake yelled, but before they could move, the darkness swallowed their cries, gripping them tighter than the bonds of friendship could decipher. What had they awakened? What nightmare loomed just beyond their reach? The air thickened with dread, the answer on the tip of their tongues, yet shrouded in the very terror they had summoned, and as the shadows drew closer, retreating was no longer an option. The shadows surged, warping and curling around them like serpents, squeezing tighter, releasing a cold that sank right through their skin and into their bones. Jake's heart raced, echoing in his ears as adrenaline screamed at him to fight or flee. But the darkness was relentless, filling his lungs with dread, so thick he could almost taste it. "Stick together," Mia shouted, trying to rally the group, though her voice trembled with uncertainty. She stepped forward, her hands grasping Jake's arm, eyes locked onto the girl on stage. The figure swayed gently, as if taunting them. "Help me." The girl's voice floated through the air, seductive and haunting, echoing like a distant bell tolling for the damned. "What do you want?" Tim shouted back, trying to mask his fear with bravado, but his voice cracked like thin ice. The girl didn't reply. Instead, she tilted her head, and the shadows around her seemed to pulse with a life of their own, growing darker and more alive. With every passing second, the temperature plummeted, and a sense of malevolence wrapped around them like layers of fragile paper, ready to be ripped apart. The weight of something primal loomed, fed by whispers that echoed darkly in the corridors of Jake's mind. "What have you done?" a voice hissed, slipping through the fabric of the shadows, making him question his reality. Zoe squeezed Tim's hand, her knuckles white, terror clinging to her like a shroud. "I can't see anything but darkness," she cried. "This is not what I wanted." "Then let us get out of here," Jake insisted, pulling Mia back towards the edge of the auditorium. But as he turned, the exit vanished behind a wall of shadows, flickering like fading light. A piercing laugh filled the air, cutting through their desperation. "You can't leave. You're part of it now." The girl's arm unfurled, her fingers stretching outwards, beckoning them into a fathomless abyss. "Run!" Mia screamed, and they surged forward, feet pounding against the ground that felt like it was shifting beneath them. They veered toward the stage, the only option remaining a desperate bid for escape or confrontation. But as they approached, the stage transformed, stretching forth like a hungry maw ready to devour them whole. Tim stumbled over something, his foot catching on a dislodged piece of wood. He fell, hitting the ground with a thud, a grimace contorting his face. "Help!" he wheezed, reaching out to them. "Tim!" Zoe cried, torn between the urge to turn back or keep running. She hesitated, and Jake's gut twisted in fear. The shadows coiled around Tim's legs, pulling him deeper as his terrified screams pierced the air. "Don't leave me!" he howled, his face pale in the dim light. "Go!" Jake shouted, pushing Mia and Zoe toward the back. "We can't save him." "No. We have to help him." Zoe's voice cracked, desperate tears glinting like shards of glass in her eyes. Mia shook her head. "We can't. It might be a trap." Then, a faint glow illuminated the corners of the auditorium, drawing all their eyes, revealing a flicker of hope or perhaps the endpoint of their horror. The shadows around Tim began to wriggle, and a guttural voice echoed through the room. "Give in to the darkness, or be consumed." Jake's mind raced. They had to make a choice. Risk everything to save Tim or leave him to face whatever awaited in those swirling depths. The tremors beneath their feet intensified, a guttural growl rumbling through the ground as if the very building itself were awakening from a long slumber, hungry and unsatisfied. "Now!" Jake yelled, seizing Mia's hand, pulling her towards the light, the lingering hope dimming as Tim's final cry echoed in the distance behind them. "Stay close." Mia gasped, as the walls began to close in, shadows stretching wider, darker, preparing to swallow them whole. And just before they plunged into the glowing light, a whisper scraped against the back of Jake's mind. "You awakened us, and now, there will be no escape." What had they truly uncovered? What hideous truth lay behind the shadows? The air thickened with the remnants of their choices, as uncertainty chased them into the unknown. Would they find a way to survive, or would they succumb to the darkness they unwittingly unleashed? Jake felt the warmth of the glow wrap around them, an almost soothing balm against the frigid grip of the shadows. But the comfort was short-lived. As they moved closer, the light flickered like a dying star, and he dreaded what would happen next. "Go! Hurry!" Mia urged, her breath coming in quick bursts. But the shadows seemed to swell, pushing them back, clawing at their skin, whispering madness into their ears. The atmosphere thickened, and Jake's heart pounded harder, each beat pounding a rhythm of fear. They stumbled into the light. It wasn't an exit, instead, it unfolded like a rift, revealing a dimly lit space littered with tattered banners and dusty trophies, remnants of a forgotten celebration. The air was stale, as if trapped inside a bottle since time stopped. "What is this place?" Zoe's voice trembled, reflecting the increasing uncertainty. "I don't know," Jake replied, scanning the room for signs of life or danger. Wanting to believe they had escaped, he hoped the shadows were banished. But in his gut, he felt a roiling unease. Suddenly, from the depths of the room, murky shapes stirred. Shadows twisted, coiling like snakes, lurching ominously from the corners. Jake's breath caught in his throat. We need to move. He grabbed both Mia and Zoe, leading them deeper into the room, the glow illuminating strange murals on the walls, scenes of past students celebrating, their faces frozen in grotesque smiles, eyes glinting with something unholy. Beneath those cheerful faces lay ominous red streaks that bled into the corners, as if the murals themselves were alive, feeding on the despair of those trapped within. What is this? Zoe gasped, her face twisting in horror. Are they screaming? The sounds were disjointed, echoing through the chamber like tortured wails pulled from a nightmare. Panic surged through Jake. We have to find a way out. But as they turned, the way they entered began to warp. What had been a luminous corridor now shimmered, a mirage that betrayed their hope. Shadows fluttered, darting like angry fireflies, guiding them deeper into the throes of despair. Wait! Over there! Mia pointed towards a door, barely visible amidst the roiling darkness. They made a dash for it, adrenaline fueling their escape. Yet as they reached for the handle, it twisted and turned on its own, as if the door had a mind of its own. The whispers grew louder, swirling around them, choking off their words. Give up, give in, they taunted, each voice blending into the next, a cacophony of hopelessness reverberating against the walls. Shut up! Jake shouted, slamming his palm against the door, feeling a surge of energy. Let us through. The door screeched as it slowly opened, revealing a pitch-black void beyond. A chill rolled over him, a primordial fear that gripped his heart. What if we go in? Zoe looked at him, terror pooling in her eyes. No other choice. He grasped her arm, dragging her and Mia forward. The shadows seemed alive, hungry, wanting them, promising to offer pleasure in exchange for surrender. As they stepped through the doorway, the world exploded into flickering visions, a breakneck montage of previous occupants lost in time. Faces of students filled with agony, tearing themselves apart in a frenzied dance of despair, swirled around them. No! Mia screamed, stumbling back. We can't stay here. But the shadows surged forward, enveloping them, clawing at their very essence. Jake felt his strength falter as terror wrapped around them, and a scream echoed, one that sounded like Tim's. The figures began to close in, and realization sank in, they had awakened something darker than they could have imagined. And in that moment, amidst the swirling dread, a final whisper slipped through the chaos, chilling Jake to his core. You think you can escape, but we have been waiting. What horrifying depths would they have to descend into next? What other truths lay hidden in the shadows they dared to disturb? As they plunged into the darkness, frozen screams echoed around them, a reality-shattering reminder of the fate that awaited. The floor beneath them felt alive, pulsing with the lost souls that had walked this path before. Heart racing, Jake tightened his grip on Mia and Zoe, their breaths coming out in sharp gasps. Each step seemed to pull them deeper into the murky abyss. Stay together. Jake urged, though he felt the shadows tug at them, as if they were trying to pull them apart. The air grew colder, sucking the warmth from their limbs. Caught between darkness and the flickering visions, his mind raced. What had happened to Tim? Was he lost within this nightmare too? The thought broke his resolve, breathing a chilling dread into his chest. Mia! Zoe cried out, pointing ahead. A figure drifted into the dim light, a silhouette draped in shadows, its features blurred and contorted. Is it a person? Mia's voice trembled. The figure took a step closer. Help me, it whispered. The voice sliced through the air, distorted and choking with anguish. For a split second, hope sparked within Jake, then reality crashed down on him. This was not a call for help, it was a lure, a trap. Don't listen. Jake shouted, adrenaline surging. But he felt the shadows curling around him, whispering promises of safety, their messages seeping into his thoughts. But what if it is Tim? Mia's voice wavered, the shadows slinked around her ankles, teasing her resolve. We can help you, we can show you the truth, they whispered, 1,000 voices twisting together like a serpent. Move! Jake barked, pulling Mia away, but she hesitated. "Mia, please." Zoe pleaded, fear glistening in her eyes. "We can't trust it." Just then, a chilling shriek erupted from the depths, a scream that resonated with the anguish of countless souls trapped in this nightmare. "Run!" Jake commanded, pushing them forward, the reality of their surroundings warping. The air thick with despair closed tight around them, every breath feeling like a struggle against an unseen weight. Racing through the encroaching fog, they stumbled past decaying relics of the past. A cracked trophy case displayed trophies long since dusted over, and faded photographs showed laughing faces. Their joy felt like a cruel contrast, a harbinger of doom now buried beneath ghastly whispers. "Look!" Zoe gasped, pointing to a door at the far end, shimmering like a mirage above a scorching desert. The shadows around them twisted violently, unwilling to let their escape go unchallenged. With renewed determination, they charged towards the door. Jake reached for the handle, his heart racing. "Let us through," he yelled. But it refused to budge, resisting his desperate pull. In an instant, the whispers crescendoed, their despair filling every corner. "Give in, become one of us," they hissed, a flood of torment washing over Jake, inviting him to surrender to the abyss. "No!" Mia screamed, and with a sudden resolve, pushed against the door with both hands. It granted slightly, just enough for a sliver of light to escape. But the shadows seethed around them, furious and relentless. "Push!" Jake shouted, digging his shoulder into the door as Zoe and Mia pressed behind him, straining against the weight of despair threatening to crush them. It burst open with a shrill scream, and they tumbled into a new realm, a hall of mirrors reflecting their trembling forms, distorted into terrifying shapes and sizes. The cries of trapped souls echoed endlessly, bouncing off the reflective surfaces, magnifying their agony. What once offered them a passage now became a prison. "Where do we go?" Zoe's voice quaked, bouncing off the glass. A shattering sound rang out, and one of the mirrors splintered, releasing a wave of chilling darkness, spilling into reality. From within it, a figure clawed its way through, a grotesque version of Tim, his face a mask of sorrow and fury. Help, he seemed to plead, though shadows cloaked him, devouring any shred of humanity left. Jake's heart raced, dread clawing at his throat. "We need to fight. Fight for him." The words escaped him, resolving into a desperate shout, but as the shadows surged, Jake's voice faltered. The carol, who normally kept him grounded, shattered in a swirl of shadow and light, draining hope until there was nothing left. "Help us, Tim!" Zoe cried, reaching toward him, but the shadows squeezed tighter, threatening to sever their only connection to the light. The mirrors reflected more than their desperation, showing glimpses of darker paths and forgotten choices, their own sins intertwined with the prison they had stumbled into. And then Jake understood. This was the true labyrinth of despair, feeding on their regrets, their fears. As Tim's figure twisted in the thrall of darkness, a piercing scream erupted, sending shards of glass flying through the air, scattering pieces of each of their frights. Could they escape the web of darkness? Would they succumb to the shadows that demanded their surrender? With the walls crumbling around them, Jake took a step back. "Look!" he shouted, gazing at the flickering light ahead. That might be the way out. But as the shadows shifted, blocking their path, a chilling truth unfurled. To escape, they would have to confront their terrors and face the haunting question of who they truly were. The echoes of those trapped grew louder, binding them tighter in a cycle of despair. Their only hope lay in unraveling the darkness before it consumed them completely. Would they find redemption, or would they be lost forever in the horrors of their own making? The mirrors twisted and warped, revealing nightmarish reflections that clawed at their minds. The whispers intensified, enveloping them like a shroud made of cold terror. Each breath felt like a burden, thick and heavy, stifling their cries. "Where do we go?" Zoe whispered, her eyes darting between the reflective surfaces, searching for an escape. But the mirrors did not offer answers, they only echoed their fears, resonating with the unhappy memories buried deep within. Jake gritted his teeth, forcing himself to focus. That light, maybe we can break through. He pointed, the flickering glow shimmering like a beacon of hope amidst the gloom. But just as he rallied his resolve, Tim's grotesque form lurched toward them, shadows swirling around him like a monstrous cloak. "Don't leave me," he begged, his voice distorted and pained. Jake felt a wave of ice wash over him. "Tim." "No." But the shadows licked at Tim's feet, tugging him back, as if even he was unworthy of escape. Mia stepped forward, her face a mask of heartbreak. "Stay with us, Tim. We're here." But the darkness rippled, encircling her. "Join us, Mia," it hissed, a chorus of lost souls rising to meet her ears. "You know the truth, you want to be free. Don't listen." Jake shouted, stepping between Mia and the encroaching shadows. But doubt wormed its way into their minds, tempting them with visions of salvation. Suddenly, a mirror exploded, shards flying through the air like a storm, each reflection a vision of misery. Jake ducked, narrowly missing the debris, and glanced behind him. "We have to fight it. Fight for him. Fight for each other. Stay together." Zoe echoed, gripping Mia's arm tightly, just as the room trembled and a low growl resonated beneath their feet, echoing the whispers of regret and despair. "Which way?" Mia's voice trembled, panic rising as shadows writhed and pulled at her ankles. She could feel the icy tendrils wrapping around her, threatening to drag her into the depths. "This way!" Jake yelled, lunging toward a narrow corridor that emerged from the writhing mass, light glimmering now like a pulse, a heartbeat that promised something different. Tim's anguished cries echoed behind them, growing sharper with each desperate step they took. "Help me. Don't go. Leave him," Zoe urged, pulling at Mia. "We can't save him. We need to escape." The shadows screeched, an ear-splitting sound that felt like knives against their skin. A pair of hands spindly and black shot out from the closest mirror. They clawed at Jake's shirt, grasping frantically. "No! Let go!" Jake shouted, ripping himself away, but the shadows hissed, enraged at their attempt to break free. The corridor seemed to close in, walls pulsed rhythmically, closing off avenues of escape. Jake felt the chill crawl under his skin, 1,000 eyes watching, judging. The air was thickening with despair, clawing at their throats. As they neared the end of the corridor, a blinding light suddenly erupted, illuminating their path. But Jake hesitated, his stomach twisting in knots. This light was deceptive. Could it truly be trusted, or was it just another lure, another trick? "Jake, come on!" Zoe screamed, her voice breaking through the fog of doubt. With one last glance at the shadows, Jake made his decision. "Run!" he shouted, tearing through the corridor, pulling Mia and Zoe along. But as they barreled toward the light, a heavy feeling settled over him, a knowing. What awaited them beyond could either be their salvation or a far darker fate. They burst through the threshold into a blinding expanse, the harsh brightness making them shield their eyes. But when they adjusted, their hearts dropped as they took in the scene. They found themselves back in the school, only everything was twisted and wrong. Windows shattered, walls smeared with darkness. The screams from the mirrors echoed all around, and in the distance, a figure lurked, silhouetted against the chaos. "Welcome back," it said, voice like gravel, oozing malice. Would they have the strength to face the truth of their past, unravel the darkness that now stood before them? Or was this merely the beginning of their nightmare? The figure stepped closer, its form shifting like smoke against the shattered backdrop of the school. The voice twisted into a taunting whisper. "You thought you could escape?" A chill prickled down Jake's spine as the terrifying familiarity seized him. This was not just a shadow, it was something much worse. Memories clawed at him, every regret, every secret he thought he buried. Zoe was shaking beside him, her skin pale, eyes wide. "What is that?" "It's not just a shadow," Mia whispered, her voice a thread of fear. "It's a part of us," the figure laughed, a high, cruel sound, as if it understood their thoughts, their fears. Yes. You feel it, don't you? The sins and sorrows you've hidden away. We've been waiting. We are you. As if in response, the ground beneath them trembled, releasing dark wisps that curled around their legs like serpents. Jake clenched his fists, heart racing, adrenaline flooding him. No. We want to let you take us. The figure tilted its head, an unsettling smile spreading across its spectral face. But you entered our domain willingly. This is your reckoning. Zoe's breath hitched as her wide eyes darted toward the toppled desks and fractured mirrors scattered across the floor. The mirrors, this is all connected. We've been running in circles. Mia gasped, we need to find another way out. Dark laughter bubbled from the figure, filling the air with rancid dread. There is no escape from the truth. You must confront what lurks in the depths. Shut up. Jake yelled, forcing his way toward the darkness. You will not hold us here. But with each word, memories surged forward, familiar faces twisted in pain, moments of shame flooding his mind. He saw Tim, his friend, reaching out, eyes wide in terror as he was pulled away. Were they all damned to this nightmare? Fear fuels us, the figure hissed, clawing at the air with transparent fingers. Your past binds you. You cannot run from what you are. As Jake stared back at the figure, resolve hardened in him. We'll fight back. We're stronger together. He turned to Zoe and Mia, trust each other. We can break this. Just then, the ground rumbled violently, and the air filled with frantic whispers, voices overlapping each other in a chaotic chorus. The walls cracked, echoing the cries of lost souls, hanging in the air like a heavy fog. Listen to us. Let us guide you. It was seductive, the whispers promising freedom, whispering longings that crawled beneath their skin. No. Jake shouted. We won't give in. Fight it. In that instant, the school shifted again, a swirling vortex of shadow and light. Pictures of their failures flashed before them, swirling like a tornado, each image a plunge into despair. Remember. Zoe cried out, clutching Mia's hand tight. We're not alone. We have each other. With newfound strength, they stood together, forming a wall against the rising tide of shadows. Together. Mia echoed, gripping her friends tightly. In unison, they screamed against the dark, forcing the voices to fall silent. The shadows receded slightly, flickering, now battling back. Not yet. You are still ours. The figure shrieked, its image blurring, twisting in agony. Jake felt the pull of darkness tugging at him, trying to draw him in. We want to let you win. A roar of defiance erupted from him, rattling the very ground beneath their feet. But the echoes from the other realm crashed back, and the figure slinked dangerously close. The final test approaches, it hissed ominously, darkness swirling violently around them, ready to strike again. The walls began to fold inward, merging shadows and light into a pulsating mass. Would their bond be enough to withstand the force that wanted to tear them apart? Stay close. Jake demanded, pushing toward the flickering light, but in that moment of hope, the memories surged back, distant hands stretching out from the darkness. Will you embrace your past or be consumed by it? The question hung heavy in the air, suffocating them like a noose. What would they choose in the next moment? And could the darkness truly be beaten, or would it consume them? All? The shadows writhed, twisting and turning, the air thick with a sour stench, fear, dread, regret. Jake glanced at Zoe and Mia, their faces etched in terror, yet he saw the spark of determination in their eyes. They were still together. They had to be. They had to push through. Focus on what we've built. He shouted over the chaos. We're not victims of our past. We're survivors. The figure lunged at them, its form elongating, morphing into gargoyles of their fears. Jake's stomach churned. Each twist revealed something new, mistakes long buried, accusations that rang loud and true. "Do you see?" it crooned, its voice a silken whisper. "Your failures, your betrayals, they're here, in the darkness. Let us in, and freedom will follow." "No!" Mia screamed, grounding her feet. She raised her arms defiantly, as if to shield against the encroaching shadows. "We won't lose ourselves." Suddenly, the ground erupted beneath them. The air crackled, and Jake felt an electric charge pulling him forward. The walls were shifting, closing in like a vice. They were losing the fragile space they had fought for. Panic surged in his chest, and he turned to Zoe, who looked ready to break. "Remember our mission?" he urged. "This isn't just about us. We can help each other help Tim. We have to act now." As if sensing their unity, the figure faltered, its shape quaking, losing cohesion. "What can you do with your weak bonds?" it howled, despair lacing its words. "More than you think." Zoe shouted, her voice ringing through the tumult. With a surge of collective adrenaline, they forged a path to the flickering light at the center of their turmoil. The whispers spiked, angry and frantic, but Jake tightened his grip on his friend's hands. He felt their warmth against the encroaching cold. "Think of the light," Mia urged. "Think of why we came here." Images flashed before their eyes, laughter shared, dreams whispered, the innocent joys of youth that lingered like echoes. They swirled around them, battling the shadows for their attention. Each memory was a tether, pulling them closer to hope. The figure reeled back, its laughter shrill and angry. "You cannot hide behind dreams. They're just illusions." "Is that what you think?" Jake stepped forward, a newfound courage surging through him. "These dreams are our strength. And we will not let your darkness consume us." Jake's voice shattered the air, summoning strength from the depths of their shared experiences. He could feel it, an invisible shield formed around them, woven from laughter, friendship, and hope. The darkness buzzed and crackled, the figure writhed with rage. "Fools!" it screeched, shards of its form scattering like ashes caught in a storm. "You may think you've won now, but your past is everywhere. It's woven into your bones." In response, the air thickened. Dark hands curled out, grasping. One icy finger touched Jake's face, a jolt of despair shot through him. He saw visions: pain, sorrow, defeat. Each pulse clanged against him, echoing in his mind. "No, no!" Zoe's scream broke through. "Jake! Fight it!" Snap! It was as if a taut string had finally frayed. The overwhelming grip of memories shrank, the images dissipating like smoke in a breeze. He focused on the light, the warmth of his friends. With one powerful shove against the encroaching dark, the shadows peeled away, unraveling with a shriek that echoed through the hall. Jake lunged toward the last flicker of hope, pulling Zoe and Mia behind him, but then, from the depths of the swirling dark, came a voice more chilling than before. "This isn't over. The shadows will always linger, and you will return to face your true selves." The room began to snap back, the light casting long, jagged lines through the darkness. Jake stumbled but held on tight. "We won't be afraid," he shouted into the encroaching dark. But inside, doubt knotted in his gut. Could they truly face what was yet to come? The weight of the shadows loomed closer, a pull that beckoned them back. "Look out!" Zoe cried, her eyes widening in horror. A new figure emerged from the remnants of darkness, a silhouette familiar, yet twisted, grinning unsettlingly. "Welcome back," it rasped, skin stretched around a grin that spoke of woe. What had they awakened? And would their bond survive the next onslaught? Jake's breath hitched as the silhouette stepped forward, the dim light casting eerie angles across its face. The laughter that unfurled from its lips was not joyous, it was taunting, predatory. "Do you remember me?" The voice was a grating whisper, inching inside Jake's mind. He froze, his stomach churning. He did. How could he ever forget? Tim stood there, but not as he had been. Gone was the cheerful grin, the vibrant spark that had once filled their friendship. Instead, the figure's eyes glowed with an unsettling hunger, a maw that opened too wide to be human. You brought me back, you know. Awakened me from the depths. I needed you to come. And now, you will pay. Tim. Zoe shouted, stepping forward. It can't be you. We fought. He interrupted, voice reverberating with twisted glee. You think you can erase what you did? How you abandoned me? Mia shook her head, trying to break through the darkness seeping through Tim's mouth, filling the air around them. We didn't abandon you, but I was alone. You left me to rot. All because of your cowardice. The ground beneath them began to tremble. The walls of the once familiar hall felt like they were closing in further, like they sought to suffocate the hope they had clung to so desperately. Jake felt his pulse quicken as he glanced at Zoe and Mia, their faces painted with disbelief. No, he murmured. This can't be real. Suddenly, the air chilled, wrapping around them like icy tendrils. Tim's form flickered, growing more monstrous with each passing second, shedding whatever traces remained of their old friend. The darkness boiled and twisted behind him, erupting like a hellish tide. Jake's heart raced. We never meant to hurt you. We were scared. How very human, Tim sneered, his lips curling back to reveal teeth that were sharper than they should be. You all were scared. But here's the thing, fear is the fuel I thrive upon. Let me show you. With that, a surge of energy exploded from his figure, radiating outward like a shockwave. Jake staggered as darkness poured into him like a torrent of ice, each memory he thought buried flooding back. Moments of weakness, of selfishness, a cacophony of choices that had driven them apart. His legs threatened to buckle. Hold on. Mia wailed, grabbing his arm as shadows clawed at her ankles, pulling her toward Tim. The lights flickered wildly, casting horrific shapes on the walls, and Jake felt the fraying rope of their bond stretching. Together. Zoe cried, voice ringing despite the despair around them. We can't lose now. But as they banded together, the weight of guilt hung heavy. Memories seeped through the edges of Tim's shadowy form, shouting matches, betrayal, laughter that had faded like the twilight. Is this why you came back? Tim asked, his tone mocking. For some moment of clarity? Look where it brought you. Jake clenched his jaw, forcing the bile of fear down. We didn't come back to fight you. We came to save you. Laughter echoed from Tim. Save me? You think I need saving? At that moment, dark hands shot from the shadows, wrapping around Jake's throat. He gasped, panic clawing at his heart as his vision began to blur. The faces of Zoe and Mia faded like mist, swallowed whole by the growing darkness. Let them see the truth. Tim bellowed, throwing his head back in a laugh that grated against Jake's soul. Shadows shifted, and vision swirled, colliding with glimpses of their past spiraling around them, blacked-out memories of laughter and whispers echoing pain. The memories became vicious forces, dragging their darkest secrets to the forefront. Stop! Jake shouted, but it was no use. The truth swam against them, and suffocating despair mixed with his breaths. Then, as suddenly as it began, the pull stopped. Tim's grip released, and what remained of him started to crack, the shadow shifting and folding like fabric unfinished. He smirked a smile of shattered glass. You can't escape it. Not forever. I will always be waiting in the dark. Jake blinked, struggling to shake off the haze, but the ground quaked once more. Movement slithered in. The darkness, claws reaching out, ready to drag them under, and in that moment, a terrible realization gripped him. What lay ahead was worse than the darkness of the past. Get ready! Zoe shouted, and like a barrier of steel, they squared their shoulders, prepared to fight. As the shadows closed in again, tighter, more menacing, a whisper echoed in the depth of their minds, a cold promise that wouldn't let go. There's nowhere left to run. What awaited them in the deepening darkness? Would they finally confront the truth, or would their newfound bond shatter under the weight of their sins? In the suffocating darkness, Jake felt the weight of regret pressing down on him. Tim's twisted figure loomed, an embodiment of all the fears that had haunted them. But Jake held fast to his friends, their energy pulsing with hope, pushing the darkness back just enough to regain a foothold in the battle for their souls. "Focus!" he yelled, summoning every ounce of courage. "We can break this cycle. All of it." Mia and Zoe nodded, their expressions determined despite the fear now gnawing at their hearts. With hands intertwined, they formed a united front, channeling all of their past laughter and their shared dreams into a single mantra: "We are not defined by our fears." The shadows hesitated, recoiling for just a moment, as if uncertain how to counter their collective light. "Together!" Zoe shouted, her voice ringing through the swirling mass of despair. "We can turn this nightmare into a dream again." As they pushed forward, the air shifted, crackling like electricity around them. Memories burst forth, vivid and bright, mixing with the suffocating darkness in a swirling vortex of emotion. Joyous laughter rang out, a melody of youthful evenings spent dreaming under stars, moments of shared ambition, joy, and a friendship once unshakable. Tim's form flickered again, confusion evident in the flickering of his shadowy features. What is this?" he stammered, as if yearning to remember something long lost. "This is the truth you wanted to share," Mia exclaimed, urgency grasping her voice. "We cared, and we still care. Remember how we were, Tim. Before the darkness." The shadows around Tim twisted in reaction, an electrified snarl echoing through the auditorium, a churning mass unwilling to let their truth break free. "You think memories can save you?" he sneered, but the malice in his words simmered, wavering like a candle flickering in a gust of wind. "Not just memories." Jake's voice cut through the chaos. "This is our bond. The connection we share. You bring the darkness, but we bring the light. You need to remember who you are." Tim staggered back, shadows flickering, wrestling against that same impulse Jake felt. Beneath the rage and despair, pieces of the friend they had lost began to emerge. In their shared chorus, Jake and the girls reached deeper into their hearts, weaving the memories of a friendship forged not just from joy, but forged in struggle. "You were not alone. It's okay to be afraid," Mia cried, tears streaking her cheeks. "We all are. But we are stronger together." The dark figure laughed, yet the sound cracked under the strain of their words. "You think that will work? What you see isn't what you get. It doesn't have to be." Zoe yelled, her voice a steady force amidst the rising fears. "We have each other. That's enough." For the first time, Tim's form shimmered, light breaking through the cracks in his anguish. I remember." His voice trembled, echoing the sincerity they had longed to hear. "I was scared. I needed you with that." The shadows recoiled violently, a howl echoing through the auditorium, threatening to drown the burgeoning light. "Push back. Keep fighting," Jake cried as the figure loomed closer, shadows extending their claws, trying to wrap around them again. "For every moment of fear, we'll fight back with a moment of love." Mia shouted defiantly. They powered through, the intensity of their united will drowning out the chaotic sounds of sorrow around them. The shadows trembled, shrinking under the power of their connection, retreating back into the cracks of darkness where they belonged. "Together we'll show you the way," Jake yelled, pulling Mia and Zoe into a tighter embrace as they surged forward in unison. "I want to be swallowed." Tim's voice rang out, echoes of humanity cascading through the darkness as he too surged toward the light, shaking off the grasp of despair. Shadows curled away from him, unraveling like threads, the space crackled with life as their shimmering truth burned through it all. "You cannot have us," Jake bellowed, the weight of their experiences suddenly crystal clear. We choose to love, we choose to fight. And as the love between the trio intensified, the darkness shattered around them. Light erupted like fireworks, bursting through the theater doors, illuminating every corner and chasing the shadows back into their sad realm. When the luminescence finally faded, they found themselves still standing together, Tim, now more luminous than before, standing among them at the edge of the auditorium. I was lost, Tim murmured, eyes wide with realization, but I'm back, you brought me back. The darkness retreated, stirring faintly, but the flicker of hope remained vibrant, weaving an eternal promise between them. Now, it's a new beginning, Jake smiled, relief flooding through him as the overwhelming dread released its embrace. They stood in the aftermath of their own reckoning, knowing healing would take time, but they would walk that road together. He glanced around at his friends, his family, and felt the promise of brighter days ahead. Then a soft voice interrupted their moment. We will always be here, it whispered, hinting at shadows now faded, but ready to rise with their past. The group exchanged knowing looks, hearts stitched together like a quilt of love. And as they walked out of Maplewood High, they knew that whatever lurked in the shadows, they would face it together. Friendship had triumphed over darkness, and they were ready to face the world. And now, dear friends, as we close this chapter, let us celebrate this journey. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that await, because you need to be a part of this. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us reach even more friends who need to hear these tales. Flood the comments section below with your reactions and theories about this ending. What do you think lies ahead for our heroes? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends. Let them experience this conclusion, and remember, only true fans understand the importance of supporting this channel through these actions.